Welcome everyone to the next Alumni Career Webinar, Project Manage Your Life, with Kerry Anne Hoffman from the class of 2007. I'm Maura Sweeney, Director of Alumni Career Development at Holy Cross, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, offered exclusively for the Holy Cross community. We'll be together for about an hour today. After the formal presentation, Kerry will take questions from you for as long as time allows. I encourage you to submit questions throughout the presentation by checking out the Q&A function located on the Zoom control panel. We've also received many questions from registration, and so we'll be working with those also. Thank you for submitting those great questions. This presentation is recorded and will be shared with all participants in a few days. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Kerry. Kerry Hoffman is project manager with 10 plus years experience. She can project manage anything from your startup business to your personal to-do list. Kerry started her career managing 2 floor plans at Calicchio & Sons, a 3-star restaurant in Chelsea, before turning in hospitality shifts for a daytime desk as project manager at Seamless/Grubhub, where she managed projects on product, engineering, account management, and sales over the course of 6 years. Kerry's love of food parallels her love of fitness. Kerry's desire to reach her STEP goal and her life goals led her to ClassPass, where she currently serves as head of global project management and operations. Kerry now brings project management to companies, small teams, co-founders, and individuals with So Very Kerry, a freelance agency that offers personal and professional project management consulting. Kerry is a 2007 graduate of Holy Cross, where she served 2 terms as Student Government Association co-chair, and a graduate of the Cardozo School of Law, where she served as editor-in-chief of the Cardozo Journal of Law and Gender. Her diverse background as writer, leader, manager, and creator prepared her to manage multiple work streams at once. With her desire to always charter new frontiers, Kerry is an expert at bringing order to chaos in all areas of life. And who doesn't need that these days? With that, I am thrilled to hand things over to Kerry. We're classmates from the class of 2007, and it's been a really fun opportunity to reconnect over this presentation. So I'll hand it off, Kerry. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And I'm resharing my screen. Sorry, one of my Slack notifications went off and wanted to make sure we didn't have to read those throughout this presentation. So I'll jump right in. What we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to go over just a little bit more about me. Then we'll review what exactly is project management. We'll go through all of the steps on how you can project manage anything in your life. I'll leave you with some key takeaways, some action items that you can get started, and then ways that you can get in touch with me or keep in touch with me. So as Maura said, I graduated from Holy Cross in 2007. This is me here with Joe, the bartender, one of my very closest Holy Cross friends. And I actually, if you can see from my background, I'm calling in from my childhood home, and I was able to find this downstairs in my basement this morning. I made this. These are all pictures that I took, and it's called The Stairs of Holy Cross. So I took all these pictures of different staircases at Holy Cross and had this hanging up to remember my time on the literal hill. I went to law school right after that, which was against, I guess, my professor for the Irish American experience, Professor O'Donnell, who said to take some time off after college and do something fun like go on a boat for a year and help people learn how to fish or something crazy. But I did not do that. I went to law school in New York City. After I graduated and didn't quite necessarily find the passion I was looking for there, I followed my love of food, as Maura said, and worked at Calicchio & Sons. This is Tom Calicchio. You may know him if you are a Top Chef fan. And for those that are curious, yes, they did film a season during the pandemic, and it should be coming out in the next few months. So after my time at the restaurant, realizing that I did not want to work nights forever, I found a job at Seamless. I was at Seamless for a year before it merged with Grubhub, and then became a Seamless/Grubhub employee. So This is a picture that's just a funny background. I'm not actually at the stock exchange, but that was the day that Grubhub went public. So I was there for almost 6 years working first on a product team, then a product and engineering team, and then over to account management, and then over to sales. So I have certainly been around the food delivery block. After a brief stint at Shutterstock, I found myself at ClassPass, where I'm the head of global project management. For some context on this photo, I've never been arrested. This is not me in jail. This is a picture of me at one of our ClassPass studios. It's called Body. The founder of Body was in prison for 7 years and wanted to open a fitness studio since he found fitness while in prison. It changed his life, became a certified instructor. Everyone that he employs is an ex-con as an instructor. And the point of the workout is actually, since it is prison style, you have no access to any weights or machines. It's all body weight, I guess, anything that you could do if you were in jail. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, they have done very well since their exercise routine is very conducive to not having any equipment. So it's just a little bit more about me. So jumping right in, what is project management? So project management is the way in which you organize and manage all resources associated with a project. So with a project, you would set a goal, you would outline a plan on how you would achieve that goal. You would identify all of the resources that you need to reach that goal, and then you would set that plan in motion. The reason why I want to start with this definition is when we think of project management, we often think of project managers, and that's a role that you might know from the company that you work at. It might be something you're familiar with if someone is managing construction in your house. But if your job title is not project manager like mine, you may not think that project management is something that's in your wheelhouse. Everyone on this call, even though I don't know anything about you, I can guarantee that every single one of you has served as a project manager in some way, shape, or form, and that you can project manage something. So the example I like to give is maybe pre-pandemic, you might have invited someone over to your house. I don't know if you guys remember doing that. You know, you have a home, people would come into it willingly and would stay and hang out. And so when you invite someone over, maybe for dinner, chances are you planned some sort of menu, something you were going to serve. Maybe you ordered in, maybe you cooked. You invited those people to come over and you said, hey, come to my house, come at this time. They may have asked what to bring. You may have responded with something that they could bring along. You probably made a playlist of sorts, or you could pick one of the dinner party playlists by default on Spotify already. Chances are you tidied up, hopefully. Maybe you paid someone to tidy up. That's fine too. Or you just threw everything in the closet and closed the door. Made sure you had some napkins, some beverages. You had your playlist ready to go. You had some food. Maybe you thought of some topics to discuss in advance. Chances are you didn't, though. You probably took a natural approach there, and people came over to your home, right? And so that was a project. Hosting a dinner party is a project, right? You set a goal. Your goal was to have people over to your home. Your way to achieve that goal was to invite them over for dinner and listening to music. You identify resources that you needed, right? So you were going to need access for something for them to eat, something to get the music going. Maybe you have people in your home who helped you set up. And then you set that plan in motion. You got those invites going, you got the oven on, and you had people over. So if you can have people over for dinner, there's a lot more that you can project manage in your life. Why do I love project management? So this first bullet might be the reason why people hate project management, right? I love project management because I love to wake up with a to-do list, which might be why you want to drop off this webinar now and say, I don't want to wake up with a to-do list. I read a lot of different books with, this kind of tips on how to stay organized. And one of the tips I see a lot is that people at the end of every day write a to-do list for what to do the next day, or the first thing that they do every morning is write a to-do list. And that actually terrifies me if I were to have to do that every single day, of think about what do I have to do today. You'll see as we get kind of further into this presentation that the goal is really to have a to-do list well in advance, right? You're not rewriting it all of the time. For me, I can tell you what I'm doing this coming Friday and next Friday without having to go through it each time. I love project management because it frees your mind from worry. What some of the big takeaways from today are going to be finding a home for everything that is on your mind. So if anyone has read Marie Kondo's Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up book, um, I do enjoy it. It's a if you're an audiobook person, it's a very good audiobook. Um, her whole concept is clutter clearing, right? It's getting rid of all of that kind of excess stuff and deciding, do you really need something. I really think of project management as a way to clutter clear your mind. So constantly throughout the day, your brain is getting pinged with, don't forget to do this, and I have to call this person, and I was just about to write this down, and then my kid came running into the room, and now I can't remember. And then you can't remember something, so you're trying to pull it from your brain, and it's getting clogged with all the stuff that you actually do remember, right? And so project management is going to give you the tools that you need to take all of that inbound information and find a home for it, so you can worry about it when you need to worry about it, right? And so I hear people say things like, I have to renew my global entry in August. If you don't have a spot for that, you're just going to keep thinking about it up until August. Also, if you have to renew your global entry, they're going to send you an email 6 months in advance, which is great. So it's a great way to say, I'm gonna find a home for this. Project management is also a great way to block time off to just get stuff done, right? And so a constant, you know, feedback I get from people who start to implement project management tools is they say, "Great, I have all of this stuff that I now know that I need to do, but when am I going to do it?" Right? And so finding ways, I'll give you some tools today on ways that you can actually find a time to get stuff done. Um, and you can clear time to actually make space for fun. And so as someone, I think what drew me to law school was I thought it was an interest in law. Really, it was an interest in rules, right, which is a form of law. And uh, I was playing a game with some friends this weekend. I said, "Oh, we need rules," and uh, that's why maybe I don't get invited to as many things, because I always you need rules. I always say that fun isn't fun unless it's organized. Uh, the more that you actually organize areas of your life, you will unlock time to have play space, right? If you think about it, maybe the way that you do structure things for your kids, right? They're supposed to have that kind of free time, right? And for free play where they are more imaginative and they come up with their own games. The idea of getting really organized at home and having this great project tool where you manage stuff might make you think, "Oh, I'm going to be so rigid and boring," but you're actually going to get stuff done, and then you can go to brunch and do whatever you want, instead of constantly thinking about if you want to go to brunch, if you're going to make a reservation for brunch, who you're going to go to brunch with. You'll have all of that good to go. So I like to say that, more planned time unlocks more unplanned time. So I dated someone once. We're no longer dating, which after I tell you the story, maybe it'll become obvious to you why. Where I was with his family, there was like 12 of them. And I think we got up in the morning. It took like 2 hours to make breakfast because everybody wanted different things. Nobody knew what anyone was doing. No one was assigned tasks. Then we ate breakfast. Then it was 11:30. Then we started talking about lunch. That took another 2 hours. And then there were so many people, we were always discussing what we were going to do. Should we go to the movies? What time should we go to the movies? What movie do we want to go see? By the time we made a decision, the time had passed to see that movie, and the next movie was 3 hours from now. And then we'd go to the movie at 7, dinner was at 10 p.m. and you'd look back and say, did we even do anything today? I think we just ate 2 meals and went to the movies. Um, if we had just gotten up and said, this is what we're doing, we're getting tickets to this 2 o'clock movie, we actually could have done way more in a day. So, and that's why we're not dating anymore, because, I can't spend the whole day talking about going to the movies. So how can project management help you, right? So one is you can start to work your life outside of your job like a job. So maybe that also doesn't sound appealing. Oh, great. I have to do 2 jobs, right? I don't know if any of you read The Second Shift, which was a book I read in a sociology class at Holy Cross, about how you go to work and that's work, and then you go home for your second shift, and that's your second job. So that is the case, that there are lots of things that we need to do at home. But wouldn't that be great if you had an organized way to do it, and then you could just kind of clock out, right? I'm sure some of you that are working from home and have been working from home since March do feel that sense that you never clock out. You're kind of always working, even when you're doing something fun, even when you're watching, Wonder Woman, which they released on HBO, which if anyone wants to chat with me separately about that, that movie was, in my opinion, really not so great. But glad I saved the money seeing it, not seeing it in theaters. You don't get that satisfaction of ever feeling like you're done with what you need to do at home. And it would be great to say, I'm done with what I plan to do today, and I can do more stuff tomorrow, and I don't have to stress out about that today. It can also help you systematize recurring tasks, so you can just kind of stop reinventing the wheel. The example I give for any of you that write a grocery list is, you sit down to write this list every week, kind of as if you've never done it before, even though chances are your grocery list doesn't look that different week to week, right? So maybe you're swapping out almond milk for cashew milk, going a little nuts. Maybe last week's, hamburger meat is now chicken meat, but you kind of start this list every week. And isn't there a better way that you can systematize that, right? One is that you order it online and they tell you what you should be getting. That's one way to do it. But there are a lot of things that we all do on a regular basis, and we tend to start from scratch, instead of just having a system to say, it's been 10 days since I've run the Roomba. It's time to run the Roomba again. And then to my earlier point, it can help you just clutter clear your mind. And so one challenge I see is that a lot of people keep the things that they need to do in lots of different places, right? And so that can be helpful if you like to handwrite, you like to do some things on the computer, but how do you know what you're supposed to do on any given day if you're consulting the shared calendar you have with your partner, and the post-it that was left on the fridge, and then the notebook that you left at work? And so that's always one of my favorite things when someone is homesick from work and they ask me to go to their desk and take a photo of their to-do list. And so for some, handwriting is great, but it is that concept of we have that information in lots of different places, and if we don't have access to it, we're completely paralyzed. So the first step is understanding the difference between programs, projects, and tasks. This is the part where you can definitely use this at work, and you may already use this at work, but it's also great to bring this philosophy home. So what many of you might currently have is a to-do list, and that is a list of things that you need to do. Um, I would guarantee, though, that there is something on that list, maybe several things on that list, that not something you could do quickly or easily because it's sort of a massive undertaking. So, for example, maybe you recently got engaged. So, if you took out your to do list and wrote plan a wedding, that is something you might need to do. But that's you're not going to cross that off until you're walking down the aisle and you're married, right? You're going to be planning that wedding, even if you do it in a month. That's great, uh, but that's not really just a task that you can do. So kind of to go through these definitions, it makes a bit more sense. So the first is a program, right? So a program is a series of related projects. I like people to think through what their programs are because it helps think through what your areas of focus are. in your life, right? And so if you have this at work too, it's kind of what are the priorities for your team or for your company. So an example might be travel. So in 2021, we're not doing a bit of traveling yet, but hopefully that is in our future. And chances are, or maybe you get to go on more than one trip this year. Maybe you have a family vacation. Maybe you go somewhere for the holidays. Maybe you go somewhere just with your partner. There's probably maybe more than one trip, and each of those would be completely separate. So then the projects would be really the different trips that you would need to go on, right? A project is a series of tasks that need to get done to achieve a specific outcome. So you might be thinking, why do I need to separate out this idea of a program and a project? And when I'm at work and people ask me, is this its own project? I always say, well, does this thing that you're working on, does it have its own group of stakeholders that care only about this project versus the larger initiative, right? So if we look at some examples of projects, maybe you're going to go to Peru. That was my first COVID canceled trip. Maybe you have a bachelorette getaway to go to. Maybe you go visit family at the holidays. And chances are the bachelorette getaway has maybe a group of women that you would be traveling with, and they're all interested in that project, right? Those are the people you're going to work with on that project. They're not going with you to Peru, and they're not coming home with you for the holidays. Versus your holiday time vacation, which may require working with different members of your family on where you're going to go and whose house you're going to stay at. The tasks associated with each project, those are your to-do items, right? Pick a hotel, get special hiking shoes, research museum hours. If you were again to write every week on your to-do list, plan trip to Peru, you could make, you know, you can make progress towards planning that trip, but that's not necessarily an action item in itself. So the tasks are the actual action items that you are working on. One way that I like to think of tasks, if this helps, is to think through, is this task written in a way that if I had to, I could delegate it to someone? So let's say I'm in charge of planning the trip to Peru for my household. Um, Great. If I was really busy one Sunday, would I be able to tell someone else in my household, I'm really busy. Can you plan this trip to Peru today instead? Chances are they would have a million questions, right? Do you know when we're going? What airline are we flying? But if you said to someone in your household, "Hey, I'm working on planning this trip to Peru. I'm really busy today. Could you research hotels in Peru?" That's something that that person could do. So it's also a really helpful exercise if you find you have a lot on your plate. It's good to have a list where you can say, what are these items that I could actually delegate? The reason why our to-do list feels so scary and massive is we do frequently write them in a way where we wouldn't be able to delegate them because they all feel so monumental, right? So find perfect kindergarten for child is not something you're going to delegate out to a friend. But if one of your tasks was to look at a specific school that a friend recommended, then you may be able to ask your partner to look into it, or you may be able to ask a friend if they know more about it. And you can really get that input and you can get that help. And so that's sort of a 2021 theme of mine, right? It's okay to ask for help. And you can actually make your to-do list in a way that it's easier to find even more things you can ask for help. And then subtasks is if you really want to break down your task even further, from pick a hotel to look at Marriott points hotels versus Expedia hotels. Um, you might ask, why make subtasks of my own tasks? That seems like a lot of work, and it seems like my list will be so long and I will want to cry when I look at it. I get that. Unfortunately, you will leave this session and your to-do list might actually get longer because you'll have these action items on it. What's really great about the subtask is it is really helpful if you are looking to delegate some work to have something very, very specific. And if you have a lot going on, I'm guessing you've got something going on. If you wanted to come to this session, you've got some stuff going on in your life. What's great about subtasks is you may be able to find 15 minutes and just get something done and cross it off the list, right? I, I imagine some of you have looked at your to-do list when randomly a meeting got canceled, your workday ended earlier, the kids stayed later at school, and you're like, oh, this is great. I have half an hour. What should I do? And then you look at your list and it's like, plan wedding, find perfect kindergarten, go to Peru. And you're like, well, I'm not going to do any of these things in 30 minutes. So I guess I just won't do anything. Maybe just, pick up People Magazine and you read that. And if you enjoy doing that, that's great. When you have these kind of broken down subtasks, you can actually find something quick and easy to do. And so I was speaking to some people about this at work. This is really great when, if you are someone at your job where you feel like your schedule is really meeting heavy, and then you only get these little pockets of time. If you have these small subtasks, you can do those really quick things like call the dentist to make an appointment on a specific day, and you can cross it off. So you'll have more items on your list, but they will be much easier to cross off, which is why I like them. Okay, so this is something just to think about before, I'll go into how we're going to break everything down, but this is something before you kind of take in these next steps. Just think about now, how do you manage your to-do list? I spoke with someone and she said she didn't have any to-do lists. If she thought of something, she set a phone alarm to remind her to do it. Um, and that kept me up that night because I thought, wow, this person just lives by this alarm, just like constantly buzzing, telling her to do things. A lot of people manage to-do lists in like on a piece of paper that they kind of constantly rewrite, right? I think some of you really like doing that. You do. It's like really fun, right? You're like, oh, it's getting kind of messy. I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. And then you kind of have to start adding that to your to-do list, is rewriting your to-do list because you spent a lot of time working on it. Some people keep Google Docs or Google Sheets. I have a friend, she keeps a calendar that's right up on her fridge that she shares. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And what you'll see next is you can keep doing those, but we'll find a better way to keep it organized. So the first step to project managing your life is to make the longest to-do list ever. I want you to write down everything that you need to do between now and March 31st, right? So I don't know if anyone else thinks in quarters, right? But so that's the first quarter of this year. And include anything beyond March 31st if it comes to mind, right? So if you know that your dentist appointment, the 6-month mark, is June, you want to add that to the list. If you know that your summer vacation rental is in August and you have action items, you're going to want to write that down as well. The point of making this really, really long list is essentially, again, if you read Marie Kondo's book, the idea of kind of before you clutter clear is that you would take everything out first, right? And look at everything. I have someone coming to my home next week because I hired one of those like home edit style companies that's going to reorganize my kitchen. I'm really excited. Everyone I've told has said that sounds like something you could do yourself, Kerry. And I was like, no, this person is an expert. And the first thing she said, I said, how long is it going to take? And she said, it's going to depend on if we need to take everything out of every single cabinet. And I was like, cool, you're definitely going to need to do that. And so the point here is to get everything off of your mind. You know that some of them are written down. Chances are some of the stuff you've written down are the things that you need to do this week or next week, right? An example might be that you have to buy Valentine's Day cards for all the kids in the class, right? They're supposed to show up with, all of them handwritten, probably some sort of like gluten-free, nut-free treat to give everyone. But Valentine's Day, that's in a month. So maybe you didn't write that down yet because it's a holiday. It'll come up naturally. And you're not going to do it this week and you're not going to do it next week. Put this down on this list, right? The point is that every few days, the next time you go to CVS, right, and you see the Valentine's Day candy, you're not going to be thinking, oh, right, I'm going to have to do something for Valentine's Day, right? You know that that's already on your list. So try to think of every single thing that you have on that list, and think through them in terms of programs, right? What are the programs in your life? If you have children, there's a whole set of school programs that you're probably working on. If you're doing a home renovation, that might be a program that's important to you. It is a new year. I'm sure that some people have health and wellness related goals. Um, I know a lot of people have gym memberships on pause that they have to think through. Don't worry about when you're going to do any of these things. Just get it out on paper. I did do this exercise with a client, and I think her list had about 74 things to do. And that might sound really scary. Like, when are you going to do 74 things? The good thing is, you're not going to do them all. Like, that's just the reality. That's not the point. We're not aiming for perfection. And some of them are really fun, right? So don't go into this thinking, what are all these terrible, annoying things I have to do? 3 of the things she had to do were use up gift cards she had to different salons, right? That sounds great. But she had 3. That's awesome. Like, someone likes her times 3 to give her all of those gift cards. But gift cards are a great example of something that you don't usually write that on your list. And then what happens? You forget about them. After you make this list, maybe just go for a walk or watch a TV show or have a margarita or whatever your choice is for fun, before kind of taking on this next part, which is start to cluster items that are related, right? These can become your project. So if you wrote reorganize kitchen cabinets and buy new kitchen shelves, chances are, sounds like you're doing some stuff in your kitchen. And now you have a project called kitchen upgrade, and you could move everything into that project. The question I get a lot here is, why does this matter, really? If I have to do all of these things anyway, why do you care, Kerry, if I put them under a heading of kitchen upgrade? The reason why you want to group these things together is, if you really made this super long list, I'm going to bet that you're just not going to be able to get to everything in the first quarter of this year. And if you start to group things into projects, when it comes down to figuring out what you want to work on and what you have time for, you'll be able to say, maybe this is a project I can't do this quarter, or maybe this is a project that's just not actually that important to me, or maybe this is a project that, I got a nice holiday bonus at work and I'm going to pay someone to do this project. So the really stressful thing about everything that we have to do is, when you do get to that point of, I can't do all of this, who can help me, right? How can I get help? It's much harder to go through your list of things you have to do each week and try to find 1 or 2 random things to either outsource, just forget about entirely, ask a friend. It's a lot easier to take an entire project and say, I'm not doing this at all, or someone else is going to do this entirely, right? And maybe that person you're delegating it to is your kid or your partner or a friend or your roommate. But that is the point of having the project in place. And so, as someone, I recently purchased an apartment in Brooklyn in May, and there's tons of projects that we want to do at home. And so we did create, our projects are actually just by room, because we realized that we were just constantly, let's get a bench for here, let's look at the poster we want to put in there, and nothing felt that related. And we felt like if we could focus room by room, we could say, okay, we're not doing anything related to the kitchen right now. We're totally focused on the bedroom. Based on my earlier story, though, you guys know we finished the bedroom, and next week starts the kitchen project, which is why this home organizer is coming to our house. Then once you have those projects, that will ladder up to what your programs are, right? So if you do have a lot of home projects, and one of your programs might be home renovation. The Slack I was getting when I unshared my screen earlier, was I'm in a friend's Slack group, and someone is looking for a new job, right? And so she has a lot of work that she wants to do on that. And we can kind of go into that a little bit more later on how there's that might sound like a project, but it's probably a program. She has a lot related to her career, different projects like working on her resume, networking, starting to reach out to different people that are in her network to find those opportunities. And again, you might say, well, who cares about these programs, Kerry? I'm not going to make a vision board and put it in my closet and with these on it. Which if you were thinking of doing that, I think that's a great idea. And I have been seeing a lot in my building of people looking for old magazines to make vision boards. I recently did, my word of the year is upright. And so I took some magazines to put it on a piece of paper. So I have it around the house. And my husband thought I was like writing ransom notes because I was just cutting out weird letters and gluing them and putting them all over our home. But once you kind of see how your projects are related to each other, you can see what matters to you. And what's really helpful about this is forget everything you already know you need to do now. This is really going to help when something new comes along. And you can say, does this slot into one of my programs? Right? If I'm really focused on my home renovation, finding a new job, and health and wellness, is this new thing that's coming my way of interest, right? Maybe your partner says that they're interested in taking scuba diving lessons. And would you be interested in also taking scuba diving lessons? This is obviously an example from my personal life. This did happen. I said no. Scuba diving terrifies me. A tank underwater, I don't know. You could die. It just didn't appeal. But then I could look at that and say, is scuba diving going to help me with this career program? Definitely not. Is scuba diving going to, have anything to do with us renovating our home other than maybe having more scuba equipment in it? Also, probably not. Is scuba something that can improve my health and wellness? Maybe that's, a sporty activity that I'm interested in. But then I'm able to go through that exercise of, do I want to take this on? Do I want to bring this in? Does this matter to me this year? And we could probably do a whole other session on that, but that's a really important thing to go through. I think a lot of us probably feel like our families matter, our jobs matter, our community matters. And those are great high level values. But if you also have these programs that are kind of one step down, then you really know, okay, this is what I'm focused on. And if any of you have been working from home, I don't know if anyone, I won't go too much into my personal struggles of life, but it's hard. Focusing is hard, right? There's a lot going on all the time, and we don't really have a lot of different environments right now to help us focus. That's what the programs do. They're bringing you to focus and saying, this is what matters to me right now. The next step, now you have this list, your super long list, you have clusters of projects, you put them into programs. Maybe you've already said, cool, I'm not going to do this home renovation project. I've already said no to scuba diving. The next step is then to add any firm due dates, right? What has to get done by a certain time? You have to get those Valentine's Day cards in before Valentine's Day. Plus, Valentine's Day is a Sunday. So chances are your kid's school is celebrating Friday. That's the 12th. You have to get that done. You're going to want to add that as a firm due date. There's really no flexibility in that. Maybe you have to go to the dentist, by June 1st, the way that your insurance works. Add those in so that way you have those kind of anchors of, I need to do these things by this date. Anything that's a little bit looser, like that you want to finish the first draft of a book that you're working on, you want to put in some target due dates just so you can better see overall, was this realistic, right? So you have these firm due dates, you have to get these things done. Everything else, though, you want to try to find a way to set some goals and some benchmarks so that way you can meet that deadline, right? So a favorite quote of mine is, something that can be done at any time is often done at no time. So if you said to yourself, great, I got the Valentine's, those are set for the 14th, I'm going to go to the dentist on March 15th. Everything else I can just do by March 31st. Come March 28th, you will not have made any progress. Just to kind of go a step back when we were talking about tasks and subtasks, this is what's really helpful about tasks and subtasks is that you can have due dates that lead you to that ultimate end date, right? So if you want to finish the first draft of your book by March 31st and it's 10 chapters, maybe you want to set a due date for each chapter between now and March 31st. So that way you're constantly working towards this. If when you were in grade school, you might have received progress reports, right? And so a progress report is a check-in before you get your final grade. That's really what tasks and subtasks are. They're check-ins until you get to the end. Those are your markers. Those are your milestones to getting there. So that way, when you get a C plus, you're not surprised because you got the progress report and you had an opportunity to check in. Power Hour. So I stole this from Gretchen Rubin, who's an author. She wrote The Happiness Project. This goes back to our working block that we talked about earlier. So Power Hour is you can take some tasks. Let's say they don't really need to get done by March 31st. They just need to get done. You need to run the Roomba. Maybe you want to find a new salon where you get your hair done. You're like, I don't want to set a due date for this. This is not a make it or break it. You have this Power Hour list. The Power Hour list is great. And if you do share your home with anyone, it's a great shared activity. So this is basically like, you need to get this done. And you're not going to say it has to be done by Saturday because that's not really going to motivate you. These are the things that you could just quickly do in an hour or less. And then if you randomly had an hour free, you can just get all these things off of your Power Hour list. I recommend that you pick a slot where you do this at the same time, right? So maybe it's Saturdays at 9, you're awake, everyone else in your house is like still drinking coffee. And then you can just look. So when something comes up in the middle of the week, you're like, oh, now I have to add this to my task list. It doesn't fit with one of my projects and what's my firm due date and all these things Kerry told me. No, if you know it's not going to take that long, just put it on your Power Hour list, visit that list every now and then you just get it done. It's just those small things like, look at that thing on the sink upstairs, tighten the screw, change all the batteries in your carbon monoxide detector. I think you are supposed to do that on a regular basis though. So you should maybe write that one down as a recurring task. And then find a tool that works for you. So I use Asana for everything. With the exception of Google Calendar. I use Google Calendar for appointments and shared, like things that happen at a very certain time, like going to dinner or going to the dentist. A lot of people use Evernote. That's really great if you like to store recipes and to-do lists. Trello is fun if you use a table format. Airtable is more like Excel. There are a lot of tools out there. If you like to handwrite, you can also handwrite. The thing I like about using a tool is, at least for me, when I use Asana, I can set up actual recurring tasks, right? So every week it can say, update my Rent the Runway spreadsheet, right? And then once I cross it off, it auto generates a task for the next week. I can create a project of all the grocery items that I buy, right? And it recurs every week and I just make changes. And if someone says, oh, I'm having my wedding shower is May 15th, I can put down April 1st, check registry for buying a gift. That's why using a tool versus maybe just handwriting is really helpful, because it really does take that item you have for the future and it finds a home, even if it's really, really far in the future. And so about 8 months ago, I learned that my mom has to apply for Social Security when she's 60, at the end of the year that she's 60, whatever it was for December 31st, 2021. You're not going to write that down on a to-do list. It's not going to cross that off for so long. But I was able to go into Asana and I put in a task for December 31st, 2021 to look into Social Security. And now it's off my mind, right? I don't have to worry that I'm going to forget it. And then just begin. You have to begin. To begin, right? Just do something on your list. Ideally, by this weekend, and for some of you, it might be even a holiday weekend, try to cross off 5 or 6 things. that might sound like a lot. Pick the easiest things. If any of you are doing resolutions this year, I do it's 21 in 2021, so it's 21 things I want to do this year. And a lot of people are like, that's too many things. But one of them might be get the enhanced ID, right? You're supposed to get like that enhanced, at least I think that's across, right? It's to get that enhanced ID now from the DMV. Uh, and if you don't have it, you need to bring your passport even for domestic travel. They've extended the deadline, I think. Maybe it's to 2022. But that's something that, you can put that on your list of goals for the year and then you cross it off once it's done. So try to just cross some things off the list because you'll get excited that you cross so many things off, that it will encourage you to keep going. So it's all about progress. It's definitely not about perfection. I don't want to move into questions. So just kind of the key takeaways: define your programs and projects. What are your priorities and what can wait? That's what you're really trying to figure out. And it's January 12th. This is the perfect time to figure out what your priorities are, at least for this quarter, if not the year. Make a huge to-do list. Use a document, Evernote, Asana, whatever you'd like. Start figuring out a system that works for you. Maybe you want to use Google Calendar and you want to use Evernote. I think it matters less how many tools you use as long as each one has a designated purpose. And then cross a few things off your list to inspire crossing more things off your list. This is just some info that Maura will be able to send out so you can get in touch with me. I do virtual lunch and learns at companies. I do one-to-one mentorships and boot camps. I have a code here that you can use if you're interested in any of those, but you can also just email me, check out my website, follow me on Instagram for more info. So we're about 3 minutes into questions, so I'll stop there and turn it over to you, Maura.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. This is as exciting and useful as I expected. And as someone who loves organizing for fun, the idea of organizing tasks in addition to organizing things is very exciting. So we have lots of questions that have come in so far. So I'm going to do my best to get through. One quick clarification that someone asked, as you were talking about projects and programs I'm working through, someone asked, okay, so for an example, is household upkeep a project or a program? Like the tasks they're thinking through are laundry, cleaning, grocery shopping, meal prep. What would be your approach there?
So that's kind of an interesting one because a lot of those types of tasks are those maintenance ones, right? Where you're never fully done with the project. But I would think of it as a program because you're still going to have different projects underneath it, right? And so even though
Yep.
we probably all do laundry, we may have to clean dishes or empty the dishwasher, there are going to be different projects that come up under maintenance that will have a start and end date, right? So, oh, it's time to get a new roof. That's something we do every 10 years. You would have that as a project. It would have its own set of tasks. So you might think of one project as just maintenance, the things I always have to do. I always have to do laundry. That's never going to end. But then leave room for those projects that you can kind of do separately, might be more one-off.
Well, and I see that being helpful too, because if you need to buy more laundry detergent, that is a useful maybe subtask for you.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, good. Another question that had to do with the tools that you just shared. So while those are top of mind, is there a common place where people can get an overview of these different programs to determine which one might be the best, which tool might be the best match for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the best way to go about it is think through how you would like to organize something now, right? And if you're already using Google Sheets because you like all the columns, then I would put into Google project management tool Excel, right? And that's going to show you the ones that are more sheet based like Airtable, right? But if you're really into calendars, you're going to want something with that's more focused on a calendar view, right? Evernote isn't about calendars. If you're really into just docs, like I just like to type a bunch of stuff out and I'm just going to dump it all in one place, you're going to want to find a tool that's doc based. In
Okay.
terms of overview, I don't know that there's a good article that kind of compares them across the board. I would see kind of what stands out to you in some light research, and then any like Asana versus Trello, Evernote versus Google Docs. You'll get some good starts there, but almost do it on paper first, and then say, okay, clearly I need something with due dates. That's what matters to me the most.
Okay. That's very helpful. That's great. Um, Another one question, this came in from registration that I think is really helpful. What is the key to managing several ongoing projects simultaneously? Because I think this is where we can all feel that feeling of overwhelm.
Yes. So this is where a tool is really great,
Okay.
because the problem when you're managing projects simultaneously, let's say you have it kind of written down on a piece of paper, you have to decide, my eye is going here, 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 here every day to
Mm,
see, do I have something for home? Do I have something for the kids? Did I do the laundry? And you have to look in a lot of different places. If you were to use a tool, the way that I organize my tool is I do have everything in its own project. So if I want to look at my house project, I can go into it and say, all right, what do I have going on? Are these due dates reasonable? But when I look at my to do list in the tool, I can sort everything in
mm,
one place by due date, right? And
mm,
so by using a tool, you can decide how you want to sort. And then that way, on any given day, it might say, do laundry, write a chapter of a book, call this person for dentist appointment, reach out to Maura about bachelorette getaway. And you can kind of see it across all projects. And
mm.
that's why I encourage you to find something that works for you. So that way you have a system for taking new stuff in. So if
Yeah.
someone emails you and says, I have to do something in a month, put that in the tool so it lives with everything else you need to do.
Yep. Yep. That's helpful. Here's a question that just came in over the chat. So you mentioned some of the challenges with working from home in terms of separating work time and home timing, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah.
Any ideas of setting time boundaries when working from home? You talked about, having that scheduled time so that you can have fun.
Yeah. So time boundaries working from home, I actually think the best thing to do is to know what is it that you want to get done before you start your workday,
Mm,
right? And what are the tasks you want to take on when the workday is done? And that's how you can time box it. So the example I would give is, for me, I know that I want to work out, go get a coffee, and make a few calls before I start my workday. And so I'll put in little due times in my tool. I want to do all of those. So when I look at that the night before, I can say, based on what I want to accomplish before the workday, I'm not going to log in tomorrow until 10 because I want
mhm,
to get all of this done. But based on the fact that I scheduled book club and we were going to hang all this stuff on the wall after work, I'm going to need to stop at 5:30 if I want to take that on. It's it's very easy to say I have a mishmash and I can do things throughout the day. I can hang those mirrors up at 12 when I have free space. This is where it's really great to have those subtasks too, because then you could say, you know what, I'm not going to start at 10 and end at 5. I'm just going to be on at 7 until 7, and I'm going to do a mishmash of stuff in between. If you have those little tasks written out, then at least you know how you can fill that space.
mm. Yeah, the idea of the power hour list of those subtasks that you can get done really quickly,
Really.
that is very, very alluring to me. Here is another really great question that came in. How can I sustain my progress toward being organized over time? I sometimes fall back to my old unorganized habits.
Yeah, it will certainly happen. I don't say that to be discouraging. First thing is just cut yourself some slack, right? The hardest part of all of this is that you are the boss,
Mm,
right? The reason why, if you're thinking, why can I do this at work? Why can't I do this at home? That's because if you don't do it at work, you get fired and then you have no money. And then you can't do any of the fun things that were on your personal to do list. And so holding yourself accountable is very, very challenging.
mm,
And you have to start to think about, what are the accountability methods that work for me? And a lot of people think what works for someone else is what works for them. If I tell someone I'm going to do this, this exercise routine, I bet that I'll do it. If I post it on Instagram, then it happened. Is that really what holds you accountable?
Mm,
Or is it something else, right? Are you better at holding yourself accountable? So figuring out what actually motivates you is helpful. And then you also just have to be honest with yourself. The goal isn't to get as many things done as possible. The goal is to get the things done that matter the most,
mm,
and that is important to you. And so I was actually recently sharing with my mom that I'm working on this book, and I realized, you know what? I can't edit when I have 20 minutes free. I need 3 hours. So if I don't block off that time, it's not going to get done. And so as you go through these first few weeks of managing your list, just spend a little time reflecting at the end of every few days to say, oh, that does work when I take a break from work and get other things done. Or, you know what? I'm too distracted. I need to block off time, and just get honest with yourself about how you like to do things.
that's helpful. Well, and another question that came up thinking about managing those work versus personal projects is they ask, do you use a personal tool for the same tool for both work and personal? And if so, how does that get muddled at all?
Yeah, so we use Asana at my job. I also
Okay.
use it at home, but I have two accounts.
Okay.
Um, I think I would recommend keeping them separate because, especially if you're working from home, but imagine going back to an office where you're not going to want to go into work and look at the item that says do laundry when you're not there to do it.
Mm,
So I think it is good to keep them in two separate places and will help with your sanity, right? When you want to say, okay, now I'm on work, I'm going to look at my work to dos. And now the work day is done, I'm going to look at my life to dos. If you are using a tool at work, all of these tools have a free version and you like that tool, I encourage you to try to use a version of it at home just because it will be easier for you to use. You are already familiar with it, and you might actually feel more encouraged to do it because you're in that habit. So if you're
mm,
like, "Oh, we use Trello at work, it's kind of cool," sign up for an account on your personal email.
perfect. Perfect. Well, I'm looking at the clock and I see it's 1:59. That hour flew by.
Thank
Um, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of this advice. I think for a lot of us, we probably need some time to, like you said, take a walk, digest all of this, and maybe make our giant list, digest again. But it's great to know that you're here as a resource, and I'll definitely share a copy of this recording with everyone who's been here today. So they'll be able to get Kerry's contact information to be able to follow up. But it's been such a delight to have you here. So wonderful to connect with you. And thank you so much for sharing all of your great advice with us today.
you so much. It was great to talk to all of you, and I hope to connect with more of you in the future.
Fabulous. So keep an eye out, everyone, for a pop-up survey that'll come up after this, as well as a follow-up email that will have a copy of the recording. It usually takes a few days. But I hope that you enjoy the rest of this afternoon. Let's hope that 2021 makes a big recovery and turns out to be a great year for everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, everyone.